Installing a Moen model 3372 3-function diverter valve. This is for the stem removal or the cartridge removal. To get the cartridge out, first thing you're going to need to do is pop this out right here. And if you're looking down inside the valve, you'll see the plastic tabs here. These are sticking out a little bit. You'll want to actually take your long nose pliers, put inside there up against those tabs, and just gently turn it until it breaks loose. It'll kind of spin a little bit like that, and then you don't have to struggle to pull the thing out. So once it's broken free, you can grab hold of it like this, give it a little twist and a tug, and she'll pop right out. And that's it. Reassembly, put it back together the same way. Make sure the tabs are centered in here, so that will go back over the top of the two pins. And to finish applying it inside there, take a piece of 1/2-inch copper tubing, and you can kind of use it to press down as you put the valve back in. That's it. For mounting the diverter valve in here, again, I got the cartridge out, and like I've seen online, what tends to be an issue is when you put the plaster here for the depth, that the diverter valve actually sticks out a little farther. Couldn't find an actual curve in one, so I got a regular 45 and then a street 45, and I'll solder those together, and then once you get that on there, you'll have approximately the right depth for it. Again, I would dry fit everything first before you do any soldering, obviously, so and then go from there. Make sure everything's going to fit before you do any of the sweating. Hopefully that helps you get that valve out so you can get it all done without doing damage to the cartridge. Alright, we've got it all soldered up now. I went ahead, like I say, in preparation, I sanded all of my connections. Here, both the pipe and the fitting on the inside, and same with the diverter valve here. I stubbed this out until we get the actual shower bar that we're going to put in, and then got all the joints soldered. But before I did that, I made sure I cut everything accordingly. And instead of making, like I've seen online, where you make an S coming out of this to go back up, this just seems a more logical way to do it by bringing it up here, solder, or putting some clamps in against the wall. Makes it nice and solid. And of course, with this top fitting here, you can move from here before you solder in and out. And of course, you can move this pivot whichever way you want there. And to make sure that I soldered them in the right spots with everything still kind of loose, I took a Sharpie and just marked to make sure all of my connections were lined up the way they were supposed to be. But make sure you sand them off real good, clean them off real good, and flux them before you solder. And for those of you who don't know how to solder joints, make sure that you heat the fitting, not the pipe, and therefore the solder will essentially just flow through the entire thing. I have a tendency to try to, for instance, heat from the top or bottom, and then I put the solder in on the other side. And in a case like this, obviously I'd probably try to heat from the bottom, let the solder flow around. But I started the top so I know the whole fitting's hot enough, and that allows it to flow in or suck in, weep into the fitting itself. And down here you can see what happens if you don't do a good cleanup job, which I missed this one. I had to pull it apart and redo it. But sanding it off, refluxed it, and fixed it up there. But pretty clean joints for a guy who is a real estate broker and not a plumber. Other thing you want to make sure of is, of course, making sure that when you're putting this all together, get your level involved. Make sure that you got everything lining up straight up and down. So all your valves, of course, line up all the way up to the top to your faucet, so everything's in line. Other than that, it's pretty straightforward. Good luck. One more thing here, just an FYI, I've got the valves out, put them in a bag, and of course I put the clips in there also. And all I did was put the covers back on here, because realistically, what I'm going to do, once I hook the PEX up, I had to redo it because I'm changing from one side of the shower to the other and ran PEX, another story. But I left the valves out of both of these, and when I get it hooked up down below in the mechanical room, I'm going to have somebody turn on the water very slowly, the main supply, and flush all these out as best as possible before I put the valves in so I don't get any debris in them. You know, even if you just hold your finger over so you get in the flow, get yourself a bucket to catch it all. But clean all that out so you don't put your valves in and then do it and you have debris, and then all of a sudden you start scoring on your seals and things and it won't shut off. So make sure you get it cleaned out well.